Now, hello everybody. Welcome. We're live. I'm Dan Banis. This is Kabarett. With me, as always, is Good Boy.
What's going on, everyone? Yay! How is everything, Dan?
Everything's good. Everything's doing all right. How is everything with you over on the eastern coast?
Well, we were bracing for essentially snowmageddon, and we got like a 2-inch dusting. So, which I'm pretty sure is like inappropriate slang in the UK for I don't know, having sex or something like that.
Some sort of a cocaine-laced sex act, I think. Right. But there's more snow in Las Vegas right now, from what I understand.
It's crazy. I heard like Arizona got like a foot of snow or something. I don't know. I don't keep up with international. I don't keep up with what the Southwest precipitation rates were. But
like a true New Yorker.
You can't predict the weather in the Southwest. We had snow in LA today.
I heard that. Where exactly was the snow?
There was snow down closer to the coast, and then we had a little bit in Sherman Oaks.
No way.
Yeah.
In Sherman Oaks, did you see it?
I was walking and I was getting just like I thought it was rain, and I looked at myself and I had just snowflakes on.
That's insane.
It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it.
Wow. Yeah. That's insane.
It was wild.
Maybe this is a good time to actually say who you are. For the viewers that are tuning in, and why that would be such an interesting thing that snow is around you.
Basically, my name's Tyler. I work in marketing, and I have a background in all kinds of political things. And I live in Los Angeles, and we had snow today, so that's how I know that.
That's so insane. I did hear there was going to be snow like sometime around the Hollywood Hills, but I didn't realize it would be Sherman Oaks. Like I assumed they meant like maybe, just like the San Gabriel Mountains, like really low.
No, not even. Like it
was
insane. Malibu got snow, tons of snow for the Sherman Oaks.
Insane. Surreal.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
People need to, I don't know, stop driving Priuses and warm the planet a bit.
Yeah, well, it sounds to me like hell has frozen over, right?
It looked like that today.
In a sense, yeah. So, usually we talk about like current events type stuff, what's going on. We've covered a lot of this Jussie Smollett crazy nonsense. But It's such nonsense, and it's so everywhere that I kind of wanted to do something a little different and just like get off the beaten path and talk about some broader issues. Like there's more to life than some stupid Empire star who's just not even a star, just some goony guy who is a joker, So
it's like a con man. Like the world doesn't. We don't care. Like the world will keep spinning. We'll be okay. He tried to con the country to further his career, and he got caught because he's a scumbag, and that's the end of that. So that's what happens. You get caught acting like a jerk, and I hope they level the law at you, big guy. I really do. I really hope they throw the fucking book at you because you're an asshole. And you had Carl Winslow up at the podium on behalf of Chicago PD. Just like, quite frankly, I was angry. It's like, yeah, I'd be a little angry too. Because like the fact that the story was as ridiculous as it was would piss me off as Chicago PD. The chief or whatever he was, the head of operations there for Chicago PD. The fact that this story involved a guy beating up a black gay man going, "This is MAGA country," and dropping the N-bomb. You know what I mean? I'd be like, yeah, like you thought that this was going to be, I don't know, Chicago's bad, but it's not that bad, I guess. Yeah. It's not like, I don't know, 1958 Montgomery. Like, you know, I mean, it's
right. It's
a
bad,
far
but
cry
not in the way that I was listening to. I was listening to Owen Benjamin's stream, and he had his buddy Vox Day on, and they were making such a funny point about how like Vox Day is like an editor and a book editor, and he's talking about how he's like he knew it was false right from the start because it was like he was telling a story, you know, and it was like a guy telling a story where he hasn't actually experienced real human beings. Like he doesn't know what he's talking about. And he made a good point that like he's like he knew it was false when he said that they were chanting. So he's like, no one actually chants in real life. And it's like that's very
It
true.
brought me back to a few times where I've been jumped and I said to myself, like, yeah, it was nothing like that, you know. Like it was very little to do with that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there are some things said, but it's usually with like through clenched teeth, like that's like it's very aggressive. You piece of shit, fuck you. Yeah, it's not like this is MAGA country. You know,
it's not like right. It's not organized.
It just shows what these people's perspective is of anyone who supports Trump. It's like that's such a perspective that's so divorced from reality that you think that just people wander around at 1:30 in the morning in Chicago in the wintertime dressed in masks, just with nooses and
just patrolling the streets. Like, I mean, what kind of a crazy? That's the Trump archetypal sort of character, right? Right. The even in the polar vortex, they have found a way to still meander the streets looking for a lone minority in the quote unquote a very gay and a very black neighborhood.
Well, and we've mentioned this numerous times already in past streams, but it's like if there's like Chicago is probably the least MAGA country place in the entire country. So it's just insane. But it is funny though, because here we are going on talking about this. This story is like infectious. It's like a cancer where people can't stop talking about it. Every single podcast, every stream, every like mainstream news source that I listen to now or pay any attention to is talking about it. He's been on the cover of the front top of Drudge Report for the last like 3 days. So it's just bizarre. And I will say though, I brought up this because this is our own page on Minds, and I just wanted to say that we called it that this was a hoax well over a week ago. So I just wanted everyone to know that I feel very good about the fact that, you know, we're not just one of those people who is just like, well, let's wait until all the facts. We don't know. No, we have to start just saying when something is nonsense. And we did. So
it's funny. I was watching that clip of Ellen Page on Colbert. And it's so funny. She's going off, you know, I've seen the most oppressed people in the world, and I'm better than you because of it. And then you can see that she's just moral posturing worse than literally I've ever seen anyone. And it didn't even look like she believed herself, but she's so just people just never say no to her in her world, so that it's just she has no concept of it. And she sits there and she turns to Colbert and she's like, after she's done with her speech, and you can tell that he kind of thinks that this story's bullshit. Like you can see it in his face.
Well, yeah, you saw that. I saw that too, Tyler. The look he gave her. You're so right. He goes. He's just like, okay. He has his hands like folded in his like on the desk, and he's just like, because he has to agree with her. He's like, you're right, or he basically agrees with whatever sort of, and that's that moment she had. About not needing to wait for anything to come out or anything like that. And you could tell as a educated man, he was just like, oh, this is going to look bad when it turns out this is all a bunch of bullshit. This is
exactly.
He
knew immediately he was trapped. He was like, I can't say it's not true. And I can't say that it's true because it might come out as fake.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But I'll tell you what, we like we're saying, you know, Colbert had to sit there and not listen. But that's why I honestly don't respect Colbert anymore, because no, he didn't. He didn't have to not say anything.
Yeah.
Like, he could be a man, you know, he can be the adult in the room and actually be like, well, you know, I mean, it is possible that this isn't the way it's been portrayed. There's, you know, like, it's, at some point, people need to start calling out utter nonsense. And like, if you have a hunch like he does instinctually that this is nonsense, like he's an extremely bright guy, it's not okay for people to just sit there like him with his goony little hands clasped in like right here. It's like, look at that face. It's obnoxious.
So upset.
Like, he used to be hilarious, I thought anyway. I'm reconsidering now. I'm like, was he ever actually funny? You know?
By the way, isn't that the look every person gives you whenever you're like, actually, I have a different opinion on that? And just that upset look she's giving him, like, how can you possibly be retracting from my perceived story? Like, how are you in disagreement? Are you some sort of closeted neo-Nazi or something? Yeah. I knew you were too close to that Catholic Church stuff there. My God. Upsetting, to say the least.
It is upsetting. None of these guys, it's interesting. It's like, it just makes me not care at all about any, you know, traditional success in Hollywood or anything like that, which at one point I really pursued. But I'm like, it's not appealing at all. All of these guys are just impotent, you know.
Hey, Dan, it's like, Dan, can I ask you something about that? I ask you something about that? Because sure. I was thinking about something very similar. I came across a couple of older clips from the BBC, and they were talking about comedy in the 60s and early to mid 60s, and it was very interesting. You know, there was that, what was that old expression that came out when they were writing the Sid Caesar show? If you can't be a writer if you're over 30. Like, they just wanted young people in the room. It was this idea of like, we need to push the boundaries. Old people don't get what's going on television. And it's this, you know, established conservative collective mindset versus what this small group of people that were exploring new ideas. And I don't know, do you see... It almost feels like the orthodoxy is this, well, left-leaning, progressive, not even liberal, but progressive sort of mindset that's very out in the open. And look at Colbert. He has to kind of agree with this crazy sort of stance she makes him take. You know, like, no, you know, this is what happened, and that's just will always be the answer. Right. And I feel like no host on late night, that if she stood in front of and said the same thing, would be in a position to disagree. So isn't this a place for comedy that's a bit that pushes back against this stuff? Or is it just, as Judge Apatow would kind of frame it, you know, just the way of the dinosaurs? You know, we're not supposed to offend people in comedy anymore, or we're not supposed to talk about ugly political ideas that don't jive with the mainstream.
Well, that's what Judd Apatow and people like Judd Apatow and Sarah Silverman have said as much. They both said, no, this is the time where we not say that anymore. We're evolving as a species. Mind you, these are both people who literally made their career, in Sarah Silverman's case, making constant rape jokes, going in blackface on, I think it was Conan O'Brien's show, you know, making the most vile jokes possible. And Judd Apatow, you know, not quite as shocking, but certainly made a lot of just, you know, traditional sort of like horn dog sort of, you know, cock.
Yeah, like raunchy comedy.
Raunchy comedy, yes. And now they're saying, no, you can't do that anymore. It just so happens to be the fact that they already made their career. They made their millions. And now they're like, no, you can't be funny. You can't shock people. You can't take the spotlight away from us. Yeah. So it's like, okay, you guys are scumbags.
Yeah, it's a weird
the answer
position.
is no.
it's a weird position to be in, because it's not like I don't care about people who've been like assaulted, or, you know, people who have faced, you know, hate because of their race or religion or, you know, sexual orientation, any of that stuff. Like, I sympathize with it as someone who's fairly liberal. But at the same time, as a liberal and not a progressive, I'm a big fan of the avant-garde. I love pushing boundaries. I love talking about, you know, divisive sort of stuff, because I feel like we can have, at the extremes, you get to have the most you have to have the most precise arguments, because that's where the danger lies, right? It's like doing a tightrope act, and it's like, intellectually speaking, even from a comedic point of view, sometimes you want to do the high wire act. That's what makes things impressive when done well. And it's like, I heard Sam Tripoli refer to it as bumper bowling comedy. So it's like you're playing, you want to play the game, but you have bumpers on. It's like, no one can get hurt, no one can fail, and we're all just going to play with the bumpers on. Right, it's like, well, no one's impressed. I'm sorry, no one's impressed. You can't make jokes that offend people. You're not really talking about anything interesting then. That's because someone's always going to be offended.
Well, it's just about cowardice. You know, it's not about doing the right thing. It's because everyone's just terrified. You know, everyone's terrified of losing their careers, losing their job, you know, losing their Affleck gig like Gilbert Gottfried did. And so, you know, I mean, that's what it's about. It's not about moving forward. It's as one Dave Rubin has said, it's not progressive, it's regressive, you know?
Right.
So, but no offense to Dave Rubin. He's a great guy, as far as I've ever known. But anyway, again, it's amazing that, like, this whole Jussie Smollett thing is kind of just, it's captured the nation. I'm really trying to not talk about it, but it's so fascinating.
There's so much more to say always about this, though. It's like, I saw a meme from, I think it was like, not to, you know, drag it on forever, but I think it was Occupy Democrats, of course, you know, and it said something like, you know, what is, if you know, just because this happened, like, what does that make Trump? It's like, it was like trying to make it about Trump versus not. I'm gonna have to pull this up for a second just to be sure on what it was, but it was the most ridiculous.
Well, you have an interesting interpretation of Occupy Democrats. Like, what would you say? How would you explain what it is that they do, if you could? If you don't mind.
I mean, they basically just cater to the lowest of the low as far as, you know, thinking human beings.
Right. So, like, it's fascinating because Occupy Democrats, if anyone doesn't know, it's like, it's a Facebook page. I don't know if it's anything else other than that, but like, so they take whatever news stories exist, and then they will like highlight a headline and make like a point that is the most off the wall point imaginable, that like misses the point. And it's like they make these arguments that are reductive to the point of just absurdity. And you're like, no human being could believe that logic is accurate.
You would think, but then they make statements like this. It says, "Dear Trumpsters, what Jussie Smollett did was wrong, but spare us your fake outrage. You cheered on a man who went around falsely accusing people of birther and email crimes," in quotes, even though the FBI came out and admitted that it was a crime. Right. And using racial tension to promote himself, and then elected him president. It's like, none of that is relevant at all to this situation. Yeah. This guy, you know, basically almost started potentially the true beginnings of like I mean, the observable beginnings of a potential civil war in this country. Honestly, I mean, we have all these little battles that we've seen, Berkeley and places like that. But it's like this was like another level. This was
it definitely would have flipped Chicago upside down for a couple of weeks. All right, there will be a protest on the street where it happened. Well, these streets are infested with white racists, and we have to keep our eyes out. The symbol "Make America Great Again" hats are a dog whistle for fascists, and I mean, it would be all the same rhetoric, and it's a religion. It's a religion. They show up week after week, absolutely, to hear the same story.
And it's
if you. It's getting old.
If not a civil war, then at the very certainly it very well could have sparked riots, like race riots, for sure. That could have easily happened. So it's like.
And when I say civil war, it's funny. I heard somebody speaking. I can't remember who it was, but this wasn't my statement originally. And they said, we look back at history and we think about these battles, but the reality is that we're looking at spans of years, and we're picking out 5 or 6 battles to look at, and we're not paying any attention to the months or years of not battles that take place in between these battles. So it's hard to even realize what you're in when you're in it. It's the forest through the trees argument. It's like, who knows what we're going to look back on this time as in this country. But
how will history show this time period? In the history books, of 50 years from now, may very well show that we are in a civil war right now, from their perspective. They're like a
bleeding Kansas moment. This is what's leading up to all of this. What's it going to look like? It's going to take a few civil rights leaders to get, hurt the way it did in the 60s. But I'll tell you what, we already had the Republican softball team get gunned down. No one talks about that at all.
That's probably the most extreme thing that has happened. We're always
next to what the FBI talking about invoking the 25th Amendment, because the president is quote unquote incapable of he's incapacitated. It's meant for when the president's in a fucking vegetative state and they're trying to be like, well, no one really likes him, so let's get rid of an elected president. It's like, what?
And not to mention, you mean Rand Paul getting attacked at his home and beaten? It's insane.
And what's funny is Rand Paul, Trump, I can understand, people's outrage, but Rand Paul is literally the most centered person in all of politics. There's nobody that you would think would be pissed off by him because he's for just freedom for everybody. But the reality is that it's not about freedom for everybody, despite what everybody claims. It's about your right to tell others what to do on one side of it, at least. And that means Rand Paul's the enemy,
Yeah, and lest we be overtly partisan or anything, this happened just today, I believe, too. A Coast Guard officer accused of drafting hit list of prominent Democrats. So a guy who's a member of the Coast Guard, and he lived apparently, from what I understand, near Washington, D.C., just I think 10, 20 miles out from there. And it's from what I understand, he sounds like he was probably pretty mentally ill. They looked over some of his stuff, and it's I guess he wrote about how he wanted to destroy everyone on Earth or something.
Yeah, you mean the stereotypical manifesto that he had?
He's a manifesto type guy.
Yeah, 15 guns and 1,000 rounds. He's going to destroy everybody on Earth.
Spoken like a true 2A kind of guy. It's just look at that pitiful fucking collection. You want to see some real shit? You need to come down to the compound.
1,000 rounds is not a stockpile. That sounds like an afternoon.
That's what we burn that much powder before lunch. What are we going to do afterwards? Play with our fucking dicks? I don't know what. What do you expect to do with 1,000 rounds?
Exactly.
So
this stuff,
point being, like, it's gotten real. It's gotten real, you know, on both sides of the aisle to varying extents. I mean, I think probably everyone here would argue that, like, there's been more violence coming from the left in terms of, like, riots and you know, fighting in the streets and stuff, and you know, false hate crimes and stuff. You know, that's obviously, there's what right-wing insanity, you know, and this guy, you know, these people do exist. So, but we're not like, I like to think we're not like, you know, we like to think we're a comedic skewing stream anyway, not like a race war prepping stream or anything like that.
One can dream.
This can be comedy to tragedy. That's all.
Yeah, they're not all mutually exclusive, to be fair. Yeah.
You know, Dan, one can dream. You know, I can have dreams of becoming something other than what I am right now. So
yeah.
If the race riots ever start, I hope that we can laugh, at least.
Yeah, well, I mean, there'll probably be a lot of laughter. I bet there was a bunch of laughter during, like, World War II. You know, at least not the people in the gulags, but you know, it would be very, you know, high drama times tend to bring out the gallows humor, which is my type of humor. To be
I love it.
But the point is, I don't necessarily see, you know, I think we're all more on the hopeful end of things in terms of the long term, even though there's probably some darkness ahead. Yeah, but so the reason I wanted to bring on Tyler here, who I've known for a while, and we've had a lot of conversations, is that he knows a whole heck of a lot about stuff like guns and the Second Amendment and what this stuff means, and also, like, he has, I think, some interesting views on technology and where we're headed. So. You know, I shared some articles. I don't even know if we want to go into them because they're kind of old news now. But so I guess let's just get right into it. So, Tyler, you're a pretty strong proponent of the Second Amendment, right? When you say that's, like, for you, it's sort of your whatever you call it, litmus test for politicians, right?
That's what I call it. I vote on the Second Amendment only. I think that I don't really understand the idea that, you know, you have to consider everything when voting. I think that you have to pick your one or two issues that for some reason or another you think are just the most important. And for me, that's the Second Amendment, because I think that it's a good litmus test, like you said, on who wants to control you versus who wants to lead you. If somebody wants to take away your right to defend yourself, they don't just want to lead you. They do want to control you. And they want to make you just reliant, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, it's funny because I had a conversation with a friend recently, and you know, he's like a left-leaning guy, pretty, you know, always has been, and has always seen himself that way. And he's like just one of the guys who, like, just blindly hates a lot of Republicans, thinks Trump is just, you know, reviles him, which I you know, whatever. I kind of get that in some ways, but I'm a guy who, you know, didn't support Trump, but now that he's president, it's like, honestly, I think he's been a pretty good president. Probably, arguably the best in my lifetime. You know, so
I would agree with that. You know, he's done some things that, as far as the Second Amendment goes, he's actually, other than his judge appointments, which I support, he has not done. He's kind of let me down, to be honest. But you know, the alternative was somebody who wanted no civilians to have any kind of weapon. So it's like, what am I going to do? You know,
right?
Go for the Wicked Witch or, you know, Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's just some goofy guy, you know, who you know, who's probably who, you know, is a better negotiator than most, and is gonna, you know, is partially stuck to kind of what he said he would do. But although a lot of people on the right, I'm sure, don't think so anymore. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are.
But good luck with negotiating with some people. Some people.
Yeah, for sure. But my point was, like, I brought up the fact that I'm like, how a lot of these people frustrate me so much, and I'm like, there's just some people, a lot of people, and particularly people on the left these days, who are just like the cynicism, and there's just like, you're just fighting like these just evil. And he was like, oh my God, come on. Don't use evil. Let's go. Let's get it down. And I'm like, and it really made me think about it. I'm like, why did I feel the need? And I'm like, yeah, some of these people are certainly evil.
100%.
It's like, if you believe in evil, then you have to acknowledge that, like, the people that are trying to usher in totalitarianism, and like, I don't know, call it what you will. Like, if you believe that evil exists, then like, that's what it is, right?
It's funny because I think that this issue on the left is that, and particularly on the left, because there's so many religious people on the right, they have an easier time dealing with at least admitting evil. I'm not saying people on the right are better people. There's bad people on all sides, obviously good people on all sides, but you look at whenever you say something like that, evil, it's like evil to so many people who are politically, ignorant, for lack of a better word, don't understand that evil actually isn't at all this movie type of evil where, he's like, this guy's sitting here like this, and he's like plotting to destroy the world. It's like, nobody's plotting to destroy the world. They might be plotting to destroy your world, but they're not plotting to destroy the world. And you don't have to be, some mega villain Hitler type of person, whatever movie character you could come up with, historical political figure who we now recognize the sins of, in order to be evil. There's so much evil in politics. It's everywhere. And if you don't see that, then, having negotiations with you is pretty difficult.
Yeah. And obviously, like, at the, when Stalin was a guy, head of the Soviet Union, we supported him in America. Like, our government was strongly supportive. They called him, Uncle Joe, support Uncle Joe. And there were plenty of people in the U.S. that supported Hitler,
Absolutely.
Particularly on the left, so like, they didn't see like, oh, there's this evil in the world. There was, it was Hitler, it was Stalin. And
but I would point out, Dan, I would point out that as we showed on a previous podcast, you had FDR saying that this new type of experiment with government we're seeing in the 20th century, some people would call it fascism, other people would call it socialism or communism, and we're going to play with these ideas here in the U.S., but it's nothing like that. It's very different. We're still going to have a freed society and blah, blah. And all it is centralized government, overreach on a free society. And I think a great line in the sand that's constantly been drawn to keep that idea in check is the Second Amendment.
Yep.
And quite frankly, even if you were on the fence with it, like, well, even the founding fathers in their wildest dreams couldn't imagine X, Y, Z. I mean, yeah, all right, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, I'll extend an olive branch and say, you're right. Maybe we have to second think how strictly we adhere to the Second Amendment. But what about the fact that the First Amendment is under such restriction? I've never seen it in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not that old, but I mean, I'm old enough to remember when you had right-wing Christian conservatives trying to limit art and expression, specifically in movies, comic books, video games. I remember a lot of that, parental advisory, that sort of things. What can and couldn't be said on the radio. I grew up in New York. You're listening to, Howard Stern, the great Howard Stern, who pushed boundaries, would make women climax on air. I mean, I remember the fervor of politicians like, man, we have to clamp down on free expression in society and how weird things were going to get. And now it's almost like you can't have even a somewhat conservative opinion. Not even that. I would say any opinion that pushes back against the new intersectional narrative, which is only really adhered to by such a very small portion of the population, 5, maybe 10, 15%, if we're being really generous. And now anytime that's pushed back, you're seeing deplatforming on such a massive scale with modern technology and social media in general. And I really think that everyone can reach across the aisle and be like, hey, I think we know what kind of country we are. Do we want to be the country that's censoring offensive speech? I mean, do we want to be that? I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's fascinating because, like, you know, I think all of us kind of came of age with the internet, you know, in the Wild West period, where it was like, it was the exact opposite. It was very libertarian. It was very laissez-faire in terms of art and culture, and anything goes. And like, that's what we came to know it as. And today it's like, anyone who spends any time on the internet knows it's anything but. It's the most rigid place. It's the most totalitarian place. There is no free thinking. They've clamped down on everything. So, but my question is, I guess, do we see that as the future, and or is this just a blip on the radar? I think, Tyler, your view would probably be that it's just a blip in the long run because of things like 3D printing, wouldn't you say? Or
yeah, basically we're going to have, so technology is going to, just like politics, we're going to reach this fork in the road, and it's already begun, where you have the people who are the innovators, which this is exactly what happened with the internet. Is originally it was a bunch of people who dropped out of college, couldn't conform to a system. They were libertarian minded, at least, regardless of what they called themselves. And they started something new that was a space for them that didn't exist prior. And then what's happened, though, is that all these people who they've hired over the years come from these Ivy League schools where things are very, very rigid now, and they're very totalitarian. And it's not being run by the same, technology is not being run by the same people that founded Silicon Valley. But the thing is that those people aren't going to innovate. Like Google, they still innovate a little bit, but they're not innovating like they used to. You're not going to see these companies doing the things that we would expect, where, you know, Google just ends up being the company that solves every issue in our world. Like everybody thought it would. And I was one of those people. I wanted to work for them, but I would never do that now. But all these startups, basically, that are going to come out with 3D printers, and blockchain technology also makes it very difficult to control people. So when you see the culmination of, basically, I'm very into the maker movement, basically, is what they call themselves. So it's, you know, home manufacturing of anything you could want, laser CNC machines and 3D printers, and you know, with the advent of the blockchain, you can't control the transfer of data anymore. And if you can't control the transfer of data, and you can manufacture an engine in your garage, then you can't control anyone anymore. And that's very close.
Yeah. So what are the types of things that people are going to be 3D printing, you know, that you think are kind of paradigm shifting?
I legitimately believe it's going to be everything. So it's going to be everything from guns to knives to parts for your car to parts for your bicycle, anything that you can imagine. I think that one of the things that's actually probably going to come pretty soon, even though I haven't heard much about it, but I can see other technologies are starting to converge, and this is probably good for anybody who's really concerned about the environment, is we're going to start just personally recycling things over and over again. So you get tired of your cup, you know, it's like the cup that you like to use or something like that, your mug. Then you just throw it in the shredder and it shreds it up, and then you pick a new design and it 3D prints it for you with, you know, recycling the material. And we're going to become much more efficient because it's going to really put an end to this consumerist culture, but it's also going to open up basically just a market of information that we can all use and then access in the physical once we download it and print it or cut it out or anything that we want to do. But we're going to be able to have automated assembly lines in our garage if we want to have a business that needs an automated assembly line in our garage.
Tyler, can I be completely honest with you?
Mm-hmm.
When you speak like that, you make me very glad that you're not involved in politics, because there would be a bullseye so large on your head. Because this is the kind of when people start talking about giving people more freedom, I'm like, well, that's the last you're going to see of this person. You know, like, don't be talking about freeing the masses. I mean, that personal, you know, responsibility and figuring out how to live within your means and help each other out without being forced to do so. God forbid we start spreading those ideas. Those people are dangerous. So I'm very concerned for you, Tyler.
Well, I have my moments where I'm concerned with myself sometimes.
Fair enough.
But hopefully I'm not the only one that ends up talking about this. And, you know, if it ends up becoming wide enough of an idea, then hopefully that protects some people. But, you know, it's going to reach the point, you know, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and they were like, you know, trying to be open-minded about this idea that basically you are going to lose control of the ability to, I mean, we already have lost control of the ability to restrict weapons. You've never had the ability to restrict weapons. You've never had the ability to restrict drugs. You know, it's just, if you think that you have the ability to restrict people, it's because you've never tried to actually break the law and get something that, you know, would be, you know, restricted by the law. But ultimately, it's going to reach a point where everybody who has a dishwasher in their house is going to also have a 3D printer in their house, and everybody who knows that you could download any piece of music that you want illegally will also know that you can download anything else that is a physical object and print it that you want illegally.
Well, that's very good news, because I just got my first dishwasher ever. So
well,
that's great news for me. Yeah. But that's interesting, because I think there's a lot of people who don't quite grasp, I'd assume, like what this has to do with like politics exactly, and what is the intersection here? Like, why does this sort of make a lot of politics obsolete? And
it removes what it does is it doesn't remove the ability to control people, because we already have no ability to control people. It's all a smoke and mirrors, and it's all an illusion.
It's programming.
It's programming, exactly. And so, but the thing is that you couldn't tell somebody now, hey, it's illegal. Like if I told you, we're going to have music control, and, you know, rap is bad, and so we're going to ban it all. And nobody's going to be like, oh yeah, that'll work, because people just won't be able to get rap. It's going to be widely known that you cannot restrict physical objects anymore. And that's not something that's currently really understood. And it's only understood by those who seek out whatever physical object it is that's banned. But whether that's drugs or, you know, everybody who's ever done any kind of illegal substance knows that there's no control. There's like sixth graders, you know, getting weed, you know, before it was legal. And those laws didn't stop anybody. And the laws don't stop people in Chicago now from getting guns. And it's, you know, we had a mass shooting a few years ago here in California, I think, and the guy built his own rifle. And he didn't even use a 3D printer. And it's like, well, where do you think rifles come from?
Right.
Build them.
Right.
That's where they come from.
Yeah, you don't need a 3D printer.
That's not what my progressive college professors told me. They told me that guns sprout from bad dead guys' graves. Typically places where a lot of white men are buried.
White, yes, bad white guys.
They sprout from the ground as pistols, and then you have to rebury the pistol, and then out sprouts an AR.
Yeah, exactly. It mutates. But that's the main thing is like it's not that all of a sudden we won't be able to control people. And that's an important distinction. It's that we're about to now know that we can't. It's instead of losing the ability, we're going to see that we just don't have it. But we never did. So it's
right. So the illusion of the fact that we ever had control is becoming more and more clear that it was strictly an illusion to begin with.
Exactly. The curtain's going to fall.
I mean, so here's the thing that's scary though. It's like when the power is so much more in people's hands than it even is today, it's like they're just going. I don't think they're just going to let it go without a fight. And I don't think that means like a violent, bloody battle, but it means like more, even tighter, rigid controls on what you're allowed to talk about, what you're allowed to think about, what's socially acceptable to say or do. And it's like, I don't know, I started thinking about this stuff. Oddly enough, say what you will, but like Kanye West, like when he started going on his crazy rants, which when you actually pieced him, you kind of pulled him apart, were the opposite of crazy. I started thinking about like programming and like how, the idea of like being in a simulation and how much of politics today, government is almost strictly based on the idea that, they simulate this reality with these rules, that we have to follow. But, most of them, no one has to follow at all. It's just that, if you don't, you feel socially ostracized. So that's going to be even further.
Oh, yeah. And the issue with this is, people will say things like the Second Amendment protects every other right. And if you don't understand what this means, then your initial thought is that, oh, if they ban other rights, then we can take up arms and like that'll, push back. And it's like that's not really what it means. Cody Wilson was this guy who founded now he's he ran into some legal issues, but his company founded this company called Defense Distributed, and basically they sell 3D printed gun plans and also CNC machines that are the size of a microwave. And so for like $1,000, and you can mill out, anything theoretically, not, just guns, but you can mill out anything on these mills that just sit the size of a printer on your desk. And what it showed was that in this age of technology, there's no distinction between the First and the Second Amendment anymore, because they banned the sharing of these files. Well, not the sharing between people, I don't think, but they banned him distributing these files. I mean, they got out anyways, and then he sued the government for First Amendment claim, not even a Second Amendment claim, but saying this is information and people have a right to the information, and he won. And then it ended up being overruled by some other federal judge, and it's going back and forth right now in the courts. But what it shows is that there is no distinction between the First and the Second Amendment in the future now in such a digital world. There's no difference. And speaking about like specifically, lack of control, people are worried about guns. Guns aren't even the thing that you need to worry about. The real thing is your ability to influence and control places that you're not at. So I actually think that a much greater threat to our security, and one that I don't think that we could ban, is just like we can't ban. Well, we couldn't effectively ban guns. Is drones. People get these drones, and we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna go do some real estate photography. It's like this is a much greater threat to security than a firearm, because you can put a firearm on top of that,
Right. I think the internet in general is the Pandora's box of a lot of things. You know, it is a great, wonderful thing, and there's a lot of evil tied to it too, because it is a machine made of human hands. So, and it will be human beings that operate it. So I have no doubt that there are nefarious actors who are very pleased that they can make their own weapons at home. But I also think, on the whole, there will be so much good that comes out of this. Like you said, the idea of recycling and producing food. They're 3D printing burgers, for Christ's sake. You know, I mean, it's and human tissue. We may be able to. We already, I think, successfully 3D printed a functioning organ. I mean, I might want to correct me on that. You might be more familiar with it.
I think that's correct.
But I mean, think about the fucking possibility. Someone could 3D print a weapon, shoot someone, and then we could 3D print the shit and fix them up in the same fucking
3D
afternoon.
Printed doctor.
We could 3D print some, and we could wake up some asshole that's the best doctor that does heart surgery. We could wake him up. Let's say he's passed out in Tokyo. We give him a nudge and we say, "Hey man, we need you to jump on the sticks for a minute." And like a video game, he jumps on the controller.
Right.
And then in Austin, where this may have happened, let's say, the best heart surgeon fixes this person. You know what I mean? Like, we're on the precipice of, it's only exponential. We just gotta keep this alive long enough for the good to outweigh the bad. I get nervous, and I think most of us that value liberty, whatever you want to take from that. Whereas the government, all they have to do is find a boogeyman. They just gotta make it seem scary, and they use it like the way parents try and scare their children about talking to strangers. I mean, I really do feel like we've regressed in for me, the most noticeable way is the way adults treat other adults like children. Like I used to be, just yearning for the days where people would address me as sir just because I was a little bit older. And that's because, I don't know, maybe we just had like a little bit more of the people that I refer to as sir went to like Vietnam. So I don't know, you kind of felt like bad. I don't know. I don't fucking know. But I feel like we've sort of accepted this paternalistic role of the government. And I don't think that's healthy. There's not enough rebels amongst us,
Yeah, we definitely have. We've been infantilized so much by so much fake things in society coming from the media and from education, particularly, that we are not even aware that most of us are children. And it's like these people who want to just ban everything because it could be some kind of danger. It's like they're just a bunch of declawed house cats that want everybody else to be declawed house cats.
Yeah.
That's like what I think of them as. It's like they want everybody to be declawed house cats because they know that otherwise they don't stand a chance.
Right. Well, the thing that kind of scares me though is like, if you look back 100 years ago or so, maybe even a little earlier than that, but like, people would think like, geez, we could get out from under this tyranny if we just had so-and-so, like an interconnected web of information, and like we have that now. And now we're just about to get out of this tyranny. We just have to have this 3D. And it's like, guys, at the end of the day, we just need to, wake up and understand that it's up to us. We have to just be adults. Like, we have to grow up. We have to just do what we have to do and think for ourselves. And it's like, until people start doing that, we can have all the 3D printing in the world, but if we don't take the time or energy to utilize it, then it doesn't matter. And
I guess you need to foster that attitude, that belief that freedom is a good thing, and that it comes with responsibility, and that's not necessarily a bad thing either. That the fruits of your labor are best enjoyed by yourself and not given to others by force. I mean, I saw like the stereotypical libertarian bumper sticker. It's like it was don't hurt people and don't take people's shit. And it's like, yeah, that pretty much boils down like a pretty what we would refer to as like the golden rule, like do unto others, like don't hurt people and respect people and whatever happened, like they love diversity, they being, I guess you would refer to as like the left, but they love diversity. I love diversity, motherfucker. You don't love diversity. Like I love when people are just so fucking out there. Like I don't jive with conspiracy theories. I don't jive with hate, like true hate, true racism. I don't jive with any of that stuff. It's not my cup of tea. I don't like it. But you know what? If Netflix or if the internet had some evil shit on there, which it does, like yes, I don't think it's anyone's fucking responsibility to try and like remove that shit, no matter how odd it may be. Because more speech is better than less speech every fucking time. Like John Stuart Mill put this argument to bed in the 1800s. I don't know why we still have to have this debate over like what we can and cannot say. And like, again, Tyler, you had mentioned it. We have been infantilized. No, we don't talk like that. And it's like, fuck you. I want to be around adults that are going to say some pretty crass shit at times. And we have to defend ourselves because at the extremes of the arguments is where the interesting stuff happens. It's where we discover where the new lines are. It's like we hone the magnifying glass, and we're playing bumper bowling. I mean, it's sad. It's sad how safe we are. I don't like it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what's led to this is I've been thinking about this idea a lot lately. Is the reason why so many people think alike right now is because we have these huge centralizations of power. So technology technology in society has gotten to this place where everybody goes to Amazon, everybody goes to college, everybody goes to Netflix, everybody goes to YouTube, and everybody Googles everything. And it's like, these are centralized, people will call it corporatism or, but the reality is that it's centralization of institutions, whether that is private or whether it's public. It's like, it doesn't really matter. What you're going to have is this monolith that ends up coming from it. And what technology has facilitated this, because prior to this, we had to have, the family unit was much more important, and, fathers and mothers basically were where you saw things, that you needed to know. And now you're plugged in while your parents are talking to you, and you're looking at a screen while your parents are talking to you. You're not learning from them. You're just all learning from the same institutions and getting their stuff from the same institutions. Technology is about to radically change that, and I guess the gatekeepers are not going to like let it go easily. And but we're reaching this point where it's no longer just about centralizations of power. It's about decentralizations of power and decentralized capitalism. And it's not about giant assembly lines and huge factories. It's going to be about your assembly line in your garage. And it's just going to be a different world. And these two worlds are going to clash. And I don't know what it's going to lead to, but they are going to clash.
Well, I just read, or I think Tim Pool was talking about that actually. Specifically, you had mentioned this idea of everyone as the makers.
Yeah.
They said Generation Z, this younger generation, if they asked them to vote, they would have voted overwhelmingly for Trump. Now that is skewed as you start comparing it to African and Latino communities in the United States. And I think Asian Americans are still slightly in favor of the Democratic incumbent, whoever that may be. But on the whole, the majority are voting against. I wouldn't even say it's for Trump as much as it's against the left, against this parentalism, so to speak. It's counterculture I see with this younger generation. And Poole pointed out, he said, the majority of jobs held by these kids, by these teenagers, aren't the jobs we had as teenagers. They aren't servers. They don't work at the movie theater. They don't work in these normal, quote unquote, normal teen jobs. Most of them are doing entrepreneurial work. Mm-hmm. Most of them are doing stuff online and working at, hey, I had this little business and I advertise on this thing. And that's how they make a little bit of their money. Overwhelmingly, that's the case. So, of course, that generation feels like, hey, well, where is my money going to that I made? There's a bit of this self-reliance that I really haven't seen since before the baby boomers. Like, we're talking the greatest generation, the ones that lived through the Great Depression and fascism. And you're kind of seeing it with Generation Z, this idea of like, well, I'm self-made. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, my parents have some influence on me, but I really get most of my information from the world because it's at my fucking fingertips. Mm-hmm. And they love people like PewDiePie who, bash, the like you had referred to, like the monolith of these major tech corporations and politicians. And they kind of are on board with this sort of idea. And I don't think these major corporations or the media in general, the status quo, if you will, are fucking ready for this new generation, because I think they're more of the makers than what previous generations have been.
Oh, they're not ready. They're so detached too. They like to think that they're so sophisticated, but the reality is that these people have everybody doing things for them, and the future is about doing things for yourself. And we're kind of going to go full circle. We went from doing things for yourself to everything being done for us, and that's why we're in the position we're in now. And then we're going to very soon, very, very quickly, go right back to doing everything for yourself, including printing your favorite mug, your mm-hmm. beer stein or something like that.
Do you need a mug, Tyler? Man, I got a few.
Hey, I do need some new mugs. We have some here, but they're not quite right. But I am going to get a 3D printer at some point, and I will be 3D printing my own mugs.
Okay,
great.
All
right, guys. Well, on that note, if anyone wants to send crypto to Tyler, you can get a mug and. Send, follow us on Minds. If you want to subscribe to us on YouTube, whatever, I guess, do that. But who cares? YouTube is dead, as far as I can see. So follow us on Minds. And thanks to Tyler Goldstein for being here. And
just my name.
What's that?
I said my channel is just my name, in case anybody's wondering.
Yeah. Check out his channel.
There's nothing there yet, but
soon, I imagine, huh?
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And good boy. Always a pleasure.
It's been great, Dan, Tyler. Let's do this again sometime soon, fellas.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. All right, everybody. Have a great one.